welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a look at male vitality, but maybe from an angle you haven't thought much about. We're sort of pushing past the usual stuff, testosterone, exercise routines, and we're focusing on something much smaller, a specific molecule.
Yeah, one that the source material we're looking at calls pretty revolutionary, actually.
Exactly. It's this fundamental piece, apparently, that affects so many different aspects of men's health.
Things that often get treated separately but might be, linked underneath.
Right. So the molecule is nitric oxide, just NO. And for this deep dive, we're drawing from an interview with Dr. Sarah Chen. She's a cardiovascular physiologist, men's health researcher.
And she spent, over 15 years studying this?
Yeah, over 15 years focused on NO. So her insights really connect the science to, the real-world impact for men, especially as they get older.
Her perspective is definitely valuable for tying it all together.
So our mission here for you is pretty straightforward. Pull out the key insights from Dr. Chen's interview. We want to get a handle on what NO actually is, why it's so vital, how it declines naturally, what that does to you.
Energy, performance, the whole lot.
Exactly. And crucially, based only on what's in this source material, what the science suggests you can do about it, both naturally and maybe with supplementation.
Sticking just to what Dr. Chen discussed in the interview.
Okay, let's dive in. Dr. Chen calls nitric oxide a miracle molecule. So, starting basic, what exactly is it?
Well, think of it like a messenger, a signaling molecule in the body. It sounds complex, but structurally it's super simple. Just one nitrogen atom, one oxygen atom.
Tiny.
Yeah, but it's constantly sending messages between your cells. It's a key part of your body's internal communication network.
And its main message, the big one it's known for?
Its most famous role is telling blood vessels to relax, to widen up.
Vasodilation, right?
That's the term, yeah, vasodilation. And Dr. Chen really emphasizes this because, it's absolutely fundamental for healthy blood flow throughout your entire system.
But it does more than just that. She mentioned it's versatile.
Oh, definitely. Vasodilation is huge, but NO is involved in a lot more. It plays a role in your immune system, how it responds to infections, inflammation.
Okay.
It helps transmit nerve signals. And there's even growing research suggesting it's important for, brain health, cognitive function.
Wow, okay, so it's really integrated into quite a few critical systems.
It really is.
So how do we connect this molecule, this vessel relaxer, to something as broad as male vitality, that feeling of energy, good performance, just overall well-being?
It pretty much all comes back to circulation, blood flow. Dr. Chen's central argument seems to be that whether you're talking exercise performance, sexual function, even how clear your head feels.
Mental clarity.
Yeah, mental clarity, focus. All those things rely heavily on efficient blood flow, getting oxygen and nutrients where they need to go.
And that efficient delivery system
is basically powered by nitric oxide telling those blood vessels how open or closed to be. It's the foundation.
Okay, but here's the kicker Dr. Chen brings up. Our bodies don't keep making as much of it as we age.
Yeah, and this is a really crucial point from the interview. This decline, it doesn't start when you're old. It can begin surprisingly early, maybe even in your late 20s.
Early 20s, wow.
And it doesn't just level off, it tends to accelerate decade by decade.
So what happens then? As the levels drop, what are the consequences?
She describes it as a kind of vitality cascade.
Yeah.
It's a cascade effect. As NO goes down, you often start seeing a cluster of issues pop up.
Like what?
Things like feeling more tired, lower energy levels generally, diminished sexual function is a big one, slower recovery times after you exercise, even that feeling of, cognitive fog or just not feeling as sharp mentally.
And her point is these aren't separate problems necessarily.
Exactly. Dr. Chen stresses they're often linked. They can be symptoms of the same underlying issue. Compromised blood flow throughout the vascular system, which traces back to having less NO available to do its job.
Okay, let's dig into that vascular connection more, specifically heart health. Dr. Chen says the research here is quite compelling.
It really is. The source material points to pretty solid evidence that boosting NO levels, particularly through things like dietary nitrates, which the body converts, can significantly help lower blood pressure.
She mentioned a specific review of studies.
Right. The interview talks about a review that pooled data from, I think it was 22 different studies.
Okay.
And it found that nitrate supplementation, so getting those precursors in, consistently lowered both numbers in your blood pressure reading, systolic and diastolic, especially in older adults.
Yeah, was it a noticeable drop? like meaningful.
Yeah, she notes the effect size was often clinically significant. You're talking reductions of maybe 5 to 10 points, mmHg in the top number, the systolic pressure.
Why is that 5 or 10 point drop such a big deal, especially for men getting older?
Well, because heart disease, cardiovascular disease, it's still the #1 killer of men, right?
Right.
So any strategy that naturally helps lower blood pressure and improves how well your blood vessels are working, that directly cuts down your risk of heart attack, stroke, other complications. It's fundamental protection.
And how exactly does NO provide that protection inside the vessels? What's it doing?
Well, besides telling them to relax and open up, which is huge.
Right, the vasodilation.
Yeah, NO also acts kind of like a natural blood thinner. Helps keep blood flowing smoothly, prevents clots, and when those vessels are relaxed and wide open, your heart just doesn't have to pump as hard.
Less strain on the heart.
Exactly. Less strain, better delivery of oxygen, nutrients everywhere. Plus, she mentions it has anti-inflammatory effects within the vessels and even helps prevent plaque from building up on the artery walls. It's like your body's own built-in system for keeping pipes clean and healthy.
Okay, that's compelling for heart health. Now let's shift gears to an area where maybe the effects are even more noticeable for some men. Sexual health. Dr. Chen calls the science here particularly fascinating.
Yeah, this is where the reliance on blood flow becomes crystal clear. She puts it very directly in the interview. Erectile function is, at its core, a vascular event. It's about blood flow.
So while other things matter, like hormones,
Hormones, weight, psychology, sure, they all play a role. But mechanically, if the blood can't get there efficiently because of poor NO signaling, things just aren't going to work properly. That's a key cause.
how does NO make that happen mechanistically?
Okay, so for an erection to happen, you need a really rapid, really significant increase in blood flow into the penis.
Right.
The blood vessels there have to dilate dramatically, relax, and just fill with blood. And that whole process, it's kicked off and completely dependent on nitric oxide being released right there in those penile blood vessels. Nerve signals during arousal trigger NO release.
And if there isn't enough NO, or the
Yeah.
vessels don't respond well,
Then achieving or maintaining that rigidity becomes difficult or impossible. Simple as that, mechanically speaking.
is that why Dr. Chen points out that men with serious ED often have underlying cardiovascular issues too?
Precisely. It's often the same root problem. She mentions that in cases of ED that are clearly linked to blood vessel problems, arteriogenic ED, they call it, you often find lower levels of L-arginine and L-citrulline.
The precursors for NO.
Exactly, the raw materials. So it makes sense. And she frames ED as potentially an early warning sign, like a manifestation of the same underlying vascular problem that might later show up as heart trouble.
Does the research suggest that supplementing with these precursors, L-arginine or L-citrulline, can actually help?
Yes, the source does highlight some promising clinical results. There was one single blind study mentioned. Men with mild ED took 1.5 grams of L-citrulline a day for a month.
Okay, what happened?
The results were pretty notable. It actually improved erection hardness enough that half the guys, 12 out of 24, were basically back to normal erectile function. Yeah. And generally, the men reported, better quality erections, more satisfaction. L-arginine also shows promise, the interview notes, especially maybe at higher doses over longer times, for ED linked to vascular issues.
So the big takeaway here, the reframe from Dr. Chen, is that sexual health is...
It's really just vascular health in disguise.
That's a powerful way to put it.
It simplifies things, doesn't it? Focus on the blood flow.
Okay, so beyond blood pressure and erections, Dr. Chen also talks about NO and fitness, exercise performance, calls the connection multifaceted and impressive.
Yeah, it makes sense when you think about it. When you're working out hard, what do your muscles scream for?
Oxygen and fuel, nutrients.
Right, and how do they get it? Through the blood. So NO steps in, dilates the vessels feeding those working muscles, and directs more blood flow right where it's needed most.
So what does that mean for someone in the gym or out for a run? What's the practical outcome?
It translates to potentially better performance. You might be able to go longer or harder. And maybe even more importantly for consistency, faster recovery afterwards.
Can you break down the how there, the mechanisms?
Sure, it's about optimizing that delivery and removal service. More NO means, 1, better oxygen delivery. 2, more efficient uptake of nutrients for fuel and for repair after the workout. 3, quicker removal of waste products like lactic acid that make you feel fatigued.
The burn.
Exactly. Helps clear that out faster. And 4, it seems to help reduce some of the oxidative stress that intense exercise can cause.
So what would a guy actually feel? Like noticeable effects if his NO levels are good.
Dr. Chen mentions a few things people often report. One is a more pronounced pump.
Ah, the muscle fullness.
Yeah, that feeling of fullness, vascularity, especially during or after lifting weights. That's a direct sign of increased blood flow. People also report improvements in endurance, just being able to sustain effort longer.
Makes sense if you're getting more oxygen.
Right. And feeling like recovery is quicker, less sore, ready to go again sooner. And often, because you're improving circulation body-wide, just better overall energy levels throughout the day, not just confined to the workout window.
Okay, let's circle back to aging. You mentioned the decline starts early, late 20s maybe. Does Dr. Chen give more specifics on that timeline?
Yeah, she paints a clearer picture. Typically, the noticeable drop really kicks in around age 30. And from there, men might lose something like 10 to 15% of their peak NO production capacity per decade.
Per decade. Wow, so by the time you're 40.
Yeah, by 40, it's not uncommon to have lost maybe 20, even 30% of the NO you were making back in your prime, say your early 20s.
That feels like a significant drop by middle age. Why? Why does the body just make less over time?
Well, part of it seems to be biological wear and tear. The main enzyme that makes NO, it's called nitric oxide synthase, or NOS, just gets less efficient as we age. It doesn't work quite as well.
Okay, sort of like an older engine.
Kind of, but, and this is a huge factor she highlights, it's also the cumulative effect of lifestyle choices over years.
Ah, the stuff we do day to day.
Exactly. Years of maybe not the best diet, being more sedentary, chronic stress, smoking is a big one, drinking too much alcohol. All these things actively damage the system responsible for producing and using NO effectively.
And that ties back to why things like heart issues, ED, lower energy often seem to emerge around the same time for many men.
Absolutely. They are often, as she puts it, the physical outcomes of that underlying vascular decline, which is significantly driven by less available NO as we age and as those lifestyle factors add up.
So if some decline is natural, is it just inevitable?
Yeah.
Something guys just have to accept?
This is where Dr. Chen offers a really empowering message. She emphasizes that while some decline happens, the extent of it is largely within our control.
Okay, how so?
She makes it clear that men who really prioritize a healthy lifestyle, staying physically active, eating foods rich in those nitrates we talked about, finding ways to manage stress, they can maintain much higher NO levels well into older age. Significantly higher than guys who are sedentary and have less healthy habits.
She even uses that example. An older active man could have better vascular function than a younger guy who isn't taking care of himself.
Right. Which completely flips the script, doesn't it? It tells you your birth certificate age isn't your destiny when it comes to vascular health. Your lifestyle choices have enormous power here. Biology isn't the only factor for NO levels.
Okay, good to know it's not entirely out of our hands. Before we get into supplements, what are the top natural ways Dr. Chen points to for boosting NO, based on evidence?
Exercise probably tops the list. She calls it maybe the most powerful natural NO booster.
Both weights and cardio.
Yep, both seem to work. Cardiovascular exercise, resistance training, they both increase blood flow. And that physical force, the sheer stress of blood rushing past the vessel walls, is a direct signal telling those cells to make more NO.
Okay, exercise is key. What else? Diet.
Diet is crucial, as she puts it. Specifically, loading up on foods that are naturally high in nitrates. These give your body the raw materials.
Like beets. Everyone talks about beets.
Beets are famous for it, yeah. But also dark leafy greens, spinach, arugula, kale, Swiss chard. Pomegranates are good. Watermelon has citrulline, which converts to arginine, then NO.
And how does that work? You eat nitrates.
Right, you eat the nitrates. Then, friendly bacteria in your mouth convert them into nitrites. Then, further down the line, especially in low oxygen conditions or acidic environments like the stomach, those nitrites get converted into nitric oxide. It's a neat little pathway.
Interesting. She also mentioned sunlight.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. Apparently, moderate exposure to UV radiation from the sun can trigger the release of NO that's stored in your skin cells.
Huh. So a little bit of sun might actually help cardiovascular health through NO.
It's a potential mechanism that might explain some observed benefits, yeah. Needs more research, but it's intriguing.
And the last big natural factor she mentioned.
Stress management. This one she called critical.
Why critical?
Because chronic stress, the kind many of us live with, floods your body with cortisol, and high cortisol levels directly interfere with NO production. They impair the NO enzyme.
Okay, so things like
Meditation, deep breathing exercises, yoga, even just making sure you get enough quality sleep. These aren't just fluffy wellness tips. They actively support your vascular health by helping keep cortisol in check and allowing for healthy NO
All right.
levels.
Okay, so on the flip side, what about the things in modern life that actively harm NO production? She pointed out one that really surprised me.
You mean the mouthwash?
Yeah, antibacterial mouthwash.
Yeah.
Why is that bad for NO?
It's fascinating, isn't it? Remember those friendly bacteria in your mouth that do the first step of converting nitrates from food into nitrates?
Yeah.
Exactly. Antibacterial mouthwash wipes out those good guys along with the bad. It disrupts that crucial oral microbiome. And by doing that, she suggests it could potentially reduce your ability to generate NO from the nitrates in your healthy diet by a huge amount, maybe up to 90%.
90%. Just from mouthwash. That's
Ab-
staggering.
It highlights how interconnected these systems are, you know. Something seemingly unrelated has a massive downstream effect.
Okay, besides avoiding germ-killing mouthwash, what other lifestyle factors should men be mindful of that hurt NO?
Well, the usual suspects are bad for NO too.
Oh.
Eating lots of processed foods, especially stuff high in sugar and unhealthy fats that damages the endothelium, the lining of the blood vessels where NO is actually made.
Makes sense.
Chronic stress, we covered that, the cortisol effect. Poor sleep quality seems to have a similar negative impact. Smoking. She describes smoking as simply devastating for NO production and vascular health.
No surprise there.
And excessive alcohol consumption also takes a toll. It harms endothelial function too.
Okay, so there's the natural decline, plus all these lifestyle factors that can sabotage things.
Yeah.
This leads us to supplementation, which many guys explore. Dr. Chen clarifies, though, you can't just take a nitric oxide pill, right?
Correct. NO itself is a gas. It's incredibly unstable, lasts only seconds in the body. So direct supplementation isn't feasible. The strategy is to give the body the building blocks, the precursor compounds that it can use to make more NO.
And the two main precursors the research focuses on are?
L-arginine and L-citrulline. These are amino acids.
How do they work differently?
So L-arginine is the direct fuel. The
Yeah.
NS enzyme takes L-arginine and converts it straight into NO and L-citrulline as a byproduct.
Okay.
L-citrulline, interestingly, takes a bit of a scenic route. Your body absorbs L-citrulline, it travels to the kidneys, and there it gets converted back into L-arginine, which can then feed into the NO production pathway.
And Dr. Jen pointed out a key difference in how they perform when you actually take them as supplements.
Yes, and this is a really important practical point from the interview.
Oh.
She notes that often supplementing with L-citrulline actually leads to better, more sustained increases in NO levels compared to taking L-arginine directly.
Why is that?
It boils down to how your body processes them. When you swallow L-arginine, a large portion of it gets broken down by enzymes in your gut and especially in your liver on its first pass-through, so less of it actually reaches your bloodstream intact.
Ah, the liver takes a big cut.
Exactly. L-citrulline, however, isn't subject to that same intense first-pass metabolism. It gets absorbed, bypasses the liver mostly untouched, and then gets converted to arginine later in the kidneys. So paradoxically, taking L-citrulline can lead to higher and more stable blood levels of L-arginine available for NO production.
Interesting. So L-citrulline might be more efficient pathway, supplement-wise?
Often, yes, that seems to be the case based on the research she discusses.
And those clinical benefits we talked about earlier, the blood pressure improvements, the help with sexual function, the exercise boost, those are largely linked to studies using these precursors.
That's right. Those positive outcomes seen in the trials, whether it was using dietary nitrates which convert to NO, or L-citrulline specifically for ED, or precursors for exercise performance, they're all tied back to increasing the body's supply of the raw materials it needs to generate more nitric oxide.
What about safety? Are these supplements generally safe to take?
According to the source, yes. L-arginine and L-citrulline are generally considered very safe and well-tolerated. They are amino acids your body uses anyway.
Any side effects?
Some people might get mild digestive upset, maybe some stomach cramps or diarrhea, especially if they take higher doses. Usually, adjusting the dose or taking it with food helps manage that.
Okay. Any major warnings?
The main caution Dr. Chen emphasizes is for guys who are already taking medications for blood pressure or other heart conditions, because these supplements can also lower blood pressure.
Right, that's the point.
Exactly. So there's a potential additive effect. It's really important for those individuals to talk to their doctor and use these supplements under medical supervision just to be safe.
Makes sense. Okay. For men who are interested, and it's appropriate for them, does Dr. Chen offer practical advice like how much to take? When? Are there combinations?
She does give some guidance based on the research. For dosing, effective daily amounts seem to range from about 1.5 grams up to maybe 6 grams for L-citrulline. For L-arginine, it's often a bit higher, maybe 3 to 6 grams daily.
And she recommends starting low.
Yeah, always sensible. Start at the lower end of the range, see how your body responds, and you can gradually increase if needed and tolerated.
What about timing? Does it matter when you take it?
It depends a bit on your goal. If you're primarily looking for exercise benefits, taking it maybe 30 to 60 minutes before your workout seems logical to kind of maximize blood flow during the activity.
Okay.
But for the more general cardiovascular or sexual health benefits, consistency seems to be more important than specific timing. So just taking the daily dose whenever it's convenient for you to remember is key.
Empty stomach or with food?
Taking it on an empty stomach might slightly improve absorption for some people, but if that causes any stomach upset, taking it with a meal or snack is perfectly fine. Consistency is more important than trying to perfectly time it around meals.
She also mentioned that sometimes these precursors are combined with other ingredients, synergistic compounds.
Right. The idea is that you can support the NO system in multiple ways, not just by providing the fuel. Some compounds can help enhance NO production, while others help protect the NO that is produced from breaking down too quickly.
Like what kind of compounds?
The source mentions antioxidants, like vitamin C and vitamin E. They help protect NO molecules from damage by free radicals, so they last longer.
Okay.
Folate and vitamin B12 are mentioned because they're important cofactors for the NO enzyme itself. They help it work better. Quercetin, found in things like onions and apples, is another one noted for potentially enhancing NO activity and protecting it. And also pine bark extract, which might help improve the overall health and function of the endothelium, the vessel lining.
So advanced supplement formulations try to combine these strategically.
Exactly. It's not just about dumping in L-citrulline or L-arginine. A more sophisticated approach, according to Dr. Chen, looks at the whole picture. How can we maximize production? How can we enhance activity? How can we extend its lifespan?
So what makes a formulation effective then? It's the combination.
It's a few things, based on her points. Using clinically effective doses of the key ingredients, ensuring they are in forms that have good bioavailability, meaning your body can actually absorb and use them, creating synergy by combining ingredients that work well together, and of course manufacturing quality things like being made in FDA-registered facilities, maybe third-party tested for purity and potency. That adds confidence.
Okay, let's bring it down to the real world. If a man starts taking steps to optimize his NO through lifestyle, diet, maybe supplements, what can he realistically expect to feel or notice? And importantly, how soon?
Dr. Chen gives a pretty helpful timeline based on what's commonly reported. Some effects can show up quite quickly. Within the first week, she says, guys might notice improvements related to exercise.
Like the pump.
Yeah, better muscle pumps during workouts, maybe feeling less fatigued, noticing improvements in endurance. That's likely due to the relatively immediate effects on blood flow.
Okay, week 1 for exercise. What about sexual health benefits?
Those tend to take a little longer to become apparent, usually within about 2 to 4 weeks of consistent use.
And what might that look like?
Improvements in erection quality, maybe increased sensitivity, just overall greater satisfaction. She also makes an interesting point that sometimes just knowing you're doing something to improve the physical mechanics can help reduce performance anxiety, which can create a positive psychological loop too.
Interesting. And the bigger picture stuff.
Yeah.
Cardiovascular health, energy.
Those benefits tend to emerge a bit later, often becoming noticeable after about 4 to 8 weeks of consistent optimization. That's when you might start seeing measurable improvements in blood pressure readings, if that was an issue, or just feeling generally better circulation, maybe more sustained energy throughout the entire day.
What about the cognitive side? The mental clarity?
That also seems to fall into that slightly longer time frame, maybe noticeable improvements in focus, clarity, or reduced brain fog within roughly 4 to 6 weeks for some individuals.
So these aren't just quick fixes then. The effects build on each other.
Absolutely. That's a really crucial takeaway from her perspective. The effects are cumulative. This isn't just about a temporary boost. When you consistently support healthy NO levels, you're leading to progressive improvements.
How so?
The long-term benefit she points to is that your blood vessels themselves can actually become healthier, more flexible, more responsive over time. It's not just about forcing them open, it's about improving their fundamental health. This creates a positive feedback loop. Healthier vessels support better NO function, which keeps vessels healthy.
That sounds like a really positive cycle to get into.
Definitely.
Finally, Dr. Chen just briefly touched on where the research might be heading. What's next for NO?
Yeah, a few exciting areas were mentioned, things like developing more targeted ways to deliver NO precursors right where they're needed, better methods to actually measure an individual's NO status, maybe through breath or saliva, which could allow for really personalized approaches.
Ah, so you know your own levels.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, exploring the deeper connections between NO optimization and overall longevity, healthy aging. And a really interesting area is the gut microbiome's role.
How does the gut fit in?
Well, remember those bacteria in the mouth needed for the nitrate conversion. There's a growing understanding that specific beneficial bacteria throughout the gut also play roles in NO metabolism and vascular health. This could potentially lead to probiotic strategies in the future to support NO levels.
Fascinating. Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, the big picture message from Dr. Chen's work seems crystal clear. Nitric oxide isn't some minor player. It's absolutely fundamental to male vitality.
Yeah, it really underpins so much. Heart health, sexual function, physical performance, even mental sharpness. It's a cornerstone.
And paying attention to it, supporting healthy levels, becomes increasingly important as men get older and that natural production starts to decline.
Right. And Dr. Chen presents optimizing NO, whether that's through smarter lifestyle choices, focusing on nitrate-rich foods, managing stress, or considering targeted supplementation where appropriate as one of the most effective and kind of holistic strategies guys have available.
Holistic because it hits multiple areas at once.
Exactly. That's what she calls the beauty of it. You focus on improving your vascular function via NO, and so many other aspects of health and vitality tend to get better as a result. It's not just treating one symptom, it's improving the underlying system.
As she says, everything else tends to improve as well.
It's a powerful concept. And thinking about it as an investment in your long-term vitality, the steps you take today to support your body's NO production, they really can pay dividends for years, even decades down the road.
So here's a final thought for you to take away from this deep dive, drawing straight from Dr. Chen's insights. Maybe that age-related decline in nitric oxide isn't entirely set in stone. Consider that the extent of that decline could be significantly influenced by the choices you make. And that working to optimize your NO isn't just about managing symptoms like low energy or performance issues today, but about fundamentally making your blood vessels healthier for the long haul. So thinking about everything we've covered, was maybe one small step based on this you could take starting today to make that investment in your own long-term vitality.